You don't have to worry, 'cause baby, there ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no valley low enough, ain't no river wide enough to keep me from getting to you, baby. Remember the day I set you free.
Alright, today we're going to look at drawing the line somewhere, because we got to show how high the mountains are, how low the valleys are, and how wide the rivers are. And here's how we do it. If we start with our worksheet here, you can see there's a bunch of numbers on it. Those numbers are called benchmarks. Just like the benchmark test kind of tells us where you're at in science class, the benchmarks here tell us where we're at elevation-wise. And we can't have benchmarks everywhere, but we have some scattered out to give us an idea of what the general landscape looks like. Now, benchmarks are metal or concrete, and they're usually sunk in the ground so they don't get carried off or knocked off or whatever. And so we have these different elevations across the map, all right? And these elevations tell us what it exactly was in those spots. In between those marks, we don't really know exactly, so we're going to have to estimate. And we're going to use those, though, to draw our contour lines. We can draw pretty accurate ones if we guess here. Now, if we start here at the first contour line, the very lowest elevation on this map is 39 feet. And so the first contour line we need is a 40-foot contour line. And it separates the 30 feet elevations from the 40 feet elevations. Just like 40 on a number line separates the 30s from the 40s. So since it's equal to 40, anywhere there's a dot that's 40 feet above sea level, we're going to go right through those dots. And you'll notice that it makes a U shape when it crosses the river. Remember, a U or V shape represents a river or gully that you're crossing, and they always point uphill. So we know that back up here is uphill, all right, because they all point this direction. That means the water runs downhill, so it's going to go up this direction because even though it's north, it's downhill. So the big numbers are up here, it's going to flow that direction. So we label both ends of our thing 40 feet. You can either use the little mark here, which means feet, or you can put FT, whichever you prefer. All right. The next line, since it says over here we have a contour interval of 10 feet, the next one will be the 50-foot contour interval. All right. It's going to go through any of the dots that have the number 50, and it's going to go between anything 40s and anything more than 50, which is 51, 52, all the 50s. It's going to separate the 40s from the 50s. So it comes down here, it points uphill when it crosses the river and makes a little U shape, and it comes off the map at the top, and that is the 50-foot interval. Now, the next interval would be 60 feet. The 60-foot interval goes through all the dots that have a 60 elevation. It makes a U shape when it crosses the river, and it goes inside the 61 here, leaving all the 60s on this side, outside the line, all the 50-somethings inside the line, and it comes up to the top. And that's our 60-foot line. Now, if you look, you see a problem though. There are some more 50s. And where are those 50s? Off over here. There's a 57, a 53, and a 58. So we need to do something about that. There's also a 60, and what did we say should go through the 60 dot? The 60-foot elevation line. That's correct. So this line probably goes off and has we'll put a dotted line up here. You don't have to draw the dotted line, but it probably goes off and then comes back on somewhere about here. So we have a 58 and a 63, so it's going to go between those two. It's got to hit this 60 dot right over here and go through it. And then we have a 57 and a 64, so it's going to have to go between there. All right. And then it's going to go off the screen right there. So that's our 60-foot line. So it looks like we have two 60-foot lines, but really this is all one line. It just went off the map for a little bit and then came back on. All right. Now, our next line is going to be a 70-foot contour line. So I would go back over here where we started on the other ones. Here's a 63, a 67, 69, and 71, 77. So a 70 line would have to go somewhere between these two. And 69 and 71, 70 is about halfway between there. So I'm going to make a line coming about halfway between there. and I'm going to label it over here as 70 foot. All right, and it's going to go about halfway between there. It's going to come up and hit 70 because it has to hit the dot 70, so it's going to go right through that dot. All right, then over here we have some 69s and 70s. It's going to go between those two. It's going to get really close to 69, not touch it, but go close to it because 69 is one off from 70. Then we look over here, we have a 68, we have a 70, so it's going to go between those two, about halfway between, maybe a little closer to 68. Here's another 70, so we're going to have to go and hit this 70. Boom. Here's a 69, so we know it's going to go really close to the 69. We hit the river. We can't go straight across the river because we know it makes kind of a U shape, so we're going to kind of curve back a little bit to make a U shape. There's a 68. We got to miss it because it needs to be on that side of the line. It needs to be over here. And there's a 70. We got to hit it. So now we look ahead. These are all 60s up here, so I can't go straight up. I'm going to have to turn. Here's a 70. Here's a 60. So I go between those two. All right. And here's a 65 and 85. So 70 is going to be kind of in between there. Here's a 67 and a 78. So I'm going to kind of work my way down through the 60s and 70s this way. Now, there's not just one way to draw these lines. Maybe this line goes up a little closer up here. That would have been fine. That would be okay if you'd drawn it that way. Maybe this line would have gone down a little steeper here. Okay, that's possible. We kind of look at the lines before us and try, as much as possible, trying to kind of parallel them. See how these all come down and go up, come down and go up, come down and go up. But then these start going back to the left, so they kind of parallel each other. You try to do that as much as you can, but if you're a little bit different on the line, as long as you have the same, all the 60s are between the two lines, then you're good. All right, and then you would do the 80 line and the 90 line and so forth. Now the question is, what's the last line that you'll have to do? All right, to figure that out, you look at the biggest number down here, 101. Okay, you need the line right before that. It's an even 10, multiple of 10, so that would be 100. So your 100 will be your last line. So you can write that up here. 100 is last. That'll be your last line that you need on this one. All right. We don't have any numbers over 110, so we don't need a 110 line. And the last thing then is the relief. The relief is the range from the lowest elevation to the highest elevation, just like the range in math. And so the highest number we said was 101, so it's 101 minus the lowest number, which is 39. All right, if we subtract those, we borrow 1, make this 9 instead of 10. Carry your 1. 11 minus 9 gives you 2. 9 minus 3 gives you 6. And so your relief would be 62 feet. All right. Now if you will draw the 80 and 90 and 100 lines on this map and continue to do the contour maps at the bottom and on the back of this page. Have fun.